Hello, everybody, and I'm actually really excited for this Media Monday because I'm going to analyze a show that I really, really enjoyed. And I watched it when I was young. Actually, I wasn't that young, I was probably a teenager, but I never really understood kind of the message until I got older and I rewatched the whole series again. And the show is Orange is the New Black.
My name is Piper Chapman.
I carried a suitcase of drug money once, 10 years ago.
Look at you, Blondie. What'd you do?
I read that you're not supposed to ask that.
Well, you studied for prison?
Chocolate and vanilla swirl.
The reason I picked this show is because I think, women in prison are already kind of underrepresented. Most of the time, when you think of a prison show, you think of like Beyond Scared Straight or Lock Up or any of those shows, and it's mainly men in prison. And so this kind of expands on the representation of minorities in TV. Women in prison are already kind of underrepresented. And then when they're inside a prison, you honestly think that maybe the African American women or the Latino women are going to overpower the prison versus a white woman. And this show kind of puts you in a place where you can see it from all sides. But then when you dive into the women and the different perspectives of the inmates, you really understand how they're presented in such a stereotypical way. The cultivation theory is kind of brought into this whole show. So one of the main characters, Piper, is portrayed as a pretty innocent, she's a middle class white woman, she went to college. See, crazy eyes, poussée, all black women are portrayed as proud, they're loud, they're strong, they're ghetto. And then lastly, the Latinos are depicted as fierce. And all these women are then confined to stay in their groups within the prison, which shows the class-based issues that correspond to the race of all the women. A lot of the characters are LGBTQ, and that in itself is already underrepresented, let alone a woman in prison, and having the whole show kind of revolve around this idea. Representation of LGBTQ characters alone is not enough. Like, just having one or two in the show is not enough. The type of representation that they're getting also matters. And often when minority groups do attain visibility in the media, it reflects on stereotypes and biases. Race really does impact the women in the prison, and that's because it changes each person's experience. And when I say that, I mean it breaks down where the inmate will be housed. It breaks down what bathroom she will be using. It breaks down where she will be sitting in the cafeteria. And the discussion of race is only part of the discussion that identifies an individual, their experiences. The women in the show face multiple systems of oppression, and as an inmate and as a woman, they're facing oppression for their gender. An incarcerated woman may face oppression as a result of being an inmate in prison and the oppression from her gender. In addition to the incarceration and the gender, women also face the discrimination that's due to their race and their sexuality. And the show includes both oppression and privilege through the representation of the women inmates in the series. This show shows so many facets of underrepresentation, from race to gender to sexuality, and it kind of all compacts it in one show. And that's why I thought this would be such a good example to show underrepresentation is one of the big things when you're talking about trans women, when you're talking about women in prison, when you're talking about, the living between a white, a black, and a Latina, and all that is vital. It's very complex, but if you have time and you're interested in something and you want to be hooked on a new show, definitely look at this one.